here now with the Chief of Police, Tom Fazio, and also with our Community Policing Officer, Darren Tracy. Chief, it's a growing town. You have a lot to do. We have a lot of traffic through the area. Can you give us an idea of the general scope of activity that the department engages in?
Well, generally, you can break that down into 4 categories. It's preventing crime, it's highway safety, you have rendering general assistance to the public, and providing high-quality support to the other agencies, the criminal justice agencies. And we come into contact with the public in many different ways. Right now, we're standing in the lobby of the police department. This is one of the ways when the public can come in and they'd be greeted by a dispatcher, a police assistant. And they either voice a concern. Some of their concerns might be a complaint, could be anything from a domestic incident to a crime committed against them, or some type of request for information. It really varies. And again, we handle about 10,000 calls for service a year, and they range in all those different categories that we talked about. And what we're looking to do as we execute our duties is, of course, to have build that public trust and confidence as we interact with them, treat the people with dignity and respect, and answer their concerns. And if we're investigating something, make sure that we get back to them and address those issues. So, the variety of problems can change from day to day. Today we have some pretty nasty weather out there, so they're busy doing the accident reports, which I think we're up to about 600 and change on the accident reports. And of course, now you're interacting with the public. They have to exchange the information. You have to call the emergency services to the scene, whether it's the fire department, the ambulance, or the tow truck to get them towed away. There's an exchange of officers. They have information. There's a lot of things to that effect. We're looking to move that along more efficiently and effectively with the exchange of information by automating and upgrading our technology so that we can scan their licenses, print their information, exchange that information. Those are one of the things we did this year, is to get Wi-Fi communications in the cars through the tablets that can communicate with our database system in the police department, and they can do the information right from patrol. When Officer Tracy would be at an accident, let's say he now scans those licenses, prints up their exchange of information, and he can hand them to the individual. So it makes it a little bit quicker, faster, get them off the road quicker so you don't have a secondary accident, and that's today's issue. Again, we deal with rendering general assistance. Could be anything from domestic violent issues, medical emergencies, lockouts, all of which we do several hundred of. These all take time. Patrols respond. If it's a lockout, there's a waiver. They'll help with that. Medical emergency, many times we're the first on the scene because we're out there actively patrolling. And we'll go down. We might issue CPR or the defibrillator if the person's in cardiac arrest, or it may be something as simple as flagging down the ambulance to make sure that they know where the house is. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to find a house. And these minutes can be critical and crucial to someone's life. Again, prevention of crime is before we go through the building, we have a detective division here. Probably have 7 detectives all told. They follow up on the heavier crimes and crimes that require more than just the initial response. So to that end, we have anything from hikers down by Breakneck. We had a lot of break-ins down there, and that people would go up hiking, and then someone would come along and break in. Detectives are out, they're in the woods, they're setting up surveillance on there until they finally apprehended the individual, working together with other departments, because this particular individual is hitting multiple jurisdictions. So we interact with other agencies along that aspect, putting out informational flyers, field intelligence officers. We exchange information with other police departments to identify pattern crime, and we compare our notes and investigative leads ultimately to apprehend the individual who is committing the crime.
All right. And you brought up a lot of things that I'm sure we'll be able to look more deeply into certain of those. Are there any hot issues right now, things that are fairly new that the department is trying to address or adapting to?
Well, I mean, a hot issue, of course, drug overdoses. That's a hot issue. They have a new training thing we'd like to identify this year. We asked the town board to give us a little bit of extra money so we could train our officers, bring them in for more training, which is very important. With these overdoses, they now have a drug that can be administered to overcome the effects of the overdose if you get there very quickly. It's an Axalon. We need to train our officers how to use it. It's kind of an aerosol spray, but we want to make sure we follow the procedures. So we need to bring our 46 officers in and train them how to use this. So that's kind of a hot issue. The drug issue today, it's not just this town. It's all over. The OxyContin, the oxycodone, the heroin abuse. You know, it starts out with anything from a simple injury where someone's put on a pain medication and they get addicted to that particular medication, and then it rolls into a more serious problem. So that, I'd say, that would be the big issue. Of course, you know, every day we deal with larcenies, identity fraud, any myriad of different issues as it relates to crimes. We have a very safe town, but of course, with the transient population that we have down here, with the hotel hub down here on Route 9 and 84, we have Sam's Club and Walmart, which brings a large influx. We have the Gap, which brings a large influx. We have a growing community off of Merritt Boulevard with all development there, also off of Brockway on Route 9D. Large complexes going up down there. So with the volume of people come issues that are you know, germane to any neighborhood that you would get. Again, we talked a little bit about you know, domestics, little complaints, or really questions. Requests for information. They could call on the phone, they stop down here, they ask our officers everything from civil issues, criminal issues, non-criminal issues. So they're really varied. And we try and monitor each particular issue. If we identify an issue, we try and address it, whether it's through surveillance, as we said, putting more resources on there, talking to them, educating the public, and hopefully resolve whatever the issue is.
The town of Fishkill also has a unique position set up within the police department, and that's the office of the community police officer. And Fishkill is lucky to have Darren Tracy. Officer Tracy, could you tell us a little bit about what it is that you do?
Well, basically what I do is perform functions of the department that are community-based, which thankfully I'm thankful to work for a department that still has those beliefs that to be community-based. So I get a lot involved with the seniors in the senior center next door to our police department and educate them on crime prevention, fraud awareness. Most of the seniors that I interact with are not computer savvy. They rely mostly on mail order things and direct approach, door-to-door sales, of course, which most people believe is something that's kind of a dead issue, but it isn't. They're targets. And just try to keep them highly educated and aware, and try to adapt and overcome when these things come up. Youth organizations, the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts regularly have tours of this facility, and I believe for the most part it's like merit-based, as it always was in the past. And just generally, rule of thumb, which is instilled in all of us here in the building, is to just be visible, be approachable, and be professional.
Okay, so we're standing here in the lobby with Chief Fazio. Chief, can you tell us a little bit about what we see here?
Well, this is the entrance to the police facility. They come in through the front door after parking, and this is where the public comes in to express their concerns or their needs. So they'd walk into the building, and they would be met, if someone was coming right now, they're handling dispatch there, but they'd be met by a police assistant, and the police assistant would answer their complaint or their concern. You can see here exact change. One of the things might be to get a copy of the accident report that they were in, or they may want a copy of the report, whatever the investigation was. So they come here, the police dispatcher would address their concerns, call an officer back to the station if it needed a requirement, or maybe just help them on whatever the need was if they could handle it themselves, or give them a little bit of guidance. Sometimes people come here, they're at the wrong police department, they need to go to a different place or a different site, or they're just looking for information. Sometimes they come, they're really looking for next door, the town hall, and they'll get redirected. In addition to that, we do custody exchanges here in the lobby. We'll do several hundred of those a year where people come in and just do a custody exchange. We assist family court in a central setting, so that to assist families with those different custody exchanges. And also, if you look off to our right here, there is a police community room. This is a service that's provided to the community. You have CAPE, which will meet there occasionally, and different organizations will come in. They'll rent the facility, and it helps them to run their particular programs.
We're here in the dispatch room of the police facility with our dispatcher, Laura Suave. She's going to tell us a little bit about what she does and the type of equipment she uses here.
Well, we use the 3 computer screens here to work our programs in which we dispatch the patrol cars. This is our radio console in which we talk to the officers on, and we take care of the people who come here to the lobby when they walk in with a complaint or a problem.
All right, so finding things busy these days?
Yes, especially with the weather.
Okay, thanks, Laura.
You're welcome.
In addition to some of the more urban issues that we have here in Fishkill, the town department also has a animal control officer to handle some of those furry issues that come up every once in a while. With us today is Walt Brosman, our animal control officer. Walt, can you give us an idea of what a typical call is like for you?
Well, they vary. If it's just a dog running loose, we try to contain the dog. If we're successful, then we try to contact the owner. Hopefully, there'll be some tags on the dog, like a license or a rabies tag, that might give us some indication as to who owns the dog. If not, we look for microchips. If they have one, go through the process, make the phone call. Sometimes we get lucky. It comes back to an owner. Sometimes it comes back to a adoption agency. And if we're unsuccessful in that direction, then it goes to the SPCA, and hopefully within 7 to 10 days, the owner will call us and they can reclaim their dog.
As the town's gotten more and more built up, I guess you're getting less and less calls for bobcats and things like that. Is that true?
Well, occasionally, we don't get too many bobcats, but we get a lot of coyotes and sick raccoons and skunks and things of that nature. We do handle some in the DEC will handle.
And well, occasionally I know we get calls for dangerous animals, dangerous dogs, dog bites. How are those calls typically handled, and what should people do?
Well, pretty much if you're out, you're jogging or you're walking or bike riding, if you should come upon a dog that's a little aggressive, try to get to someplace where you can make a phone call. Call the town of Fishkill Police, 831-1110, and if I'm not available, a car will be sent, and we'll address that issue when we get there. But the most important thing is to just keep calm, try to get to a place that's somewhat safe, like a neighbor's house, or if you don't know who it is, just go to the door, ring the bell, and just stay calm. Don't run, because they'll chase you, and make the phone call.
Right. Sound advice. Okay, Chief, we're in the back of the house here where the prisoners get processed. Where are we now? Is this, I see some scientific-looking equipment here.
Well, over here, occasionally when we're doing our traffic enforcement, we'll come across an individual who may be intoxicated, maybe had a little bit too much to drink. This is the system that it's used to analyze a breath sample. They'll blow into the machine, and it'll give an alcohol level in their blood. And that is part of the prosecutorial process, evidence-based on the amount of alcohol that's in their system at the time of the test. That's presented with other driver observations, how he came in contact with an individual. Maybe that individual is weaving, crossing over, it might be an accident or whatever. There'll be a bunch of sobriety tests that are performed at the scene. And then when there's enough probable cause for an arrest, they'll arrest them and ask them to submit to a chemical test to analyze the alcohol content of their blood. Mm-hmm. So this is the area where the machine is, and then if they blow over the legal limit of 0.08, they'd be arrested for driving while intoxicated. But they're initially brought in, as you walk a little bit further, out here is a garage sally port. The officers will call the front desk, and they will open up the garage doors automatically for the officer so he can pull in with the prisoner in custody. They'll pull the vehicle, the patrol vehicle, into the garage. The officer will he'll take the prisoner into the facility, and begin the processing of the the subject in the room. Now, there are a couple of things that happen when the subject is in. If the person is violent, we can put them into one of the holding cells, or if we're waiting arraignment, they're put into one of the holding cells. You come in, you see a spot for the individual to lay down. If they're tired, there's the ability to use a commode here, communicate with the individual through enclosed glass. Again, this is locked. That allows the officer to go ahead with his administrative processing, which is to enter all his information into the computer system. Back here we have live scan. That's an electronic scanning of your fingerprints of the individual. You take the photograph of the individual. You enter pedigree information, name, address, scars, date of birth, charge of the accident. Some of the details is done via the computer. That's, again, outside this area. When the person is locked into the cell, this allows the officer to work freely. Another alternative is sometimes less violent. They might lock him to a bench while he's being processed. And here you see the photograph, the subject be photographed. It goes into the computer system. Ideally, what we want to do is connect this system to our impact system, the database system that's up front. We want every piece of electronic equipment to talk to each other. Earlier we mentioned this year we went with Wi-Fi electronic transfer of records so that they can query the system, make entries right from the vehicle out on the road. That keeps the officers out on the road. Back here, when they bring an individual in, they start entering the information for arrest, fingerprints, photograph, any particular scars, background, pedigree information. We want that to go right into the database system, our impact system. And this way we have continuity of records and basically a start to finish on the whole case, information-wise and then processing-wise. And some of the things that are significant is, again, we want the information to self-populate so you don't type it, 2, 3, 4 times over again, where if you enter it once, it'll self-populate that same information, which might be the complainant, the address, the phone number. Some of those things get repetitive, so you want a self-populating thing. They may have even had some of the information entered in the car via the scan of the license. So again, you're trying to minimize the amount of entry you make, minimize the amount of time you spend doing administrative duties, because it's very time-consuming. In addition, you have to enter the charge. You do accusatory instruments on the individual. This is the actual charge, that calls out the elements of the crime that you committed, and then you have to support it with the information and facts that brought you to that shows he violated the elements of that particular crime. So again, that's more paperwork and stuff. That then gets forwarded to the district attorney's office, or if we wind up arraigning the individual, we have to call a judge, get the judge to respond, and transport that individual to the judge for arraignment, where he'll post a bail or maybe be released on his own recognizance. If he posts a bail, then the officer has to take the individual up to the jail and place them in jail. So some of these arrest procedures, they can be run to a couple hours of processing by the time you get through the whole thing. Sometimes we issue a desk appearance ticket. That would be for an E felony or less. And at that point, we just issue an appearance to appear at a certain date. You would involve the judge in the jail depending on the seriousness of the crime and a judgment on whether or not the person will show back up again, and if you feel that that person will return to court on the appropriate time.
All right, well, so far you've seen where folks come into the police station on the right side of the law, and you've just seen where people come in from the wrong side of the law. Now let's take a look at some of the facilities that are used when the police aren't quite sure yet.
You get people that are and that would
The capability to do background checks and get.
All right, we're in another section of the police facility now. It's just adjacent to a side door, and this is one of several interview rooms located within the building. Chief, can you tell us a little bit about what goes on here?
Yes, again, the interview room could be used for multiple purposes. Some would be non-criminal issue. For instance, on a fatal accident, we'd go out and investigate it and do all the things necessary to collect the forensic evidence at the scene. But many times the family members have a lot of questions, so we'd bring all the members of the family. Sometimes it's 8, 10 individuals. They have a series of questions. We kind of assist them. That's kind of aside from the investigative aspect of it, but just to enlighten the family on which way the case is going to go, introduce them to District Attorney's Office, Crime Victim Services, and many of the different services that are available to them. Another aspect would be perhaps we're investigating a crime and now we bring an individual in. We don't really know if the person's involved or not, or maybe we do. Maybe that person's under arrest. We bring them in here. If it involves a confession, over here we have a two-way mirror, a camera to up top here to videotape the confessions. District Attorney's Office wants confessions, caught on tape. And then it's shown that the individual was treated properly, respectfully, given their rights, and it shows the whole process, including how the exchange went. And many times they want to make sure that it was a lawful confession, that it wasn't obtained illegally through different means. So, as police officers, you have to follow policy and procedure, and including giving the individual their rights. Once that person's in custody, they're entitled to their rights, so that would be done, again, in this room, one of the interview rooms, and either confessions or just information about the crime, because really the issue is to exonerate the innocent and then convict those who committed the crime. So we try and remain neutral in it and just let the evidence and the facts speak for themselves, and whichever way it works out is the way it is. Sometimes we have an indication it might be the individual, there's not enough evidence to support it, then the individual gets released. So we try and remain neutral in the police department and just let the facts speak for themselves.
All right, we're in a room now within the police facility where some of the most vulnerable are dealt with. Chief, can you tell us a little bit about where we are?
Yes, this is a designated room for juveniles. If you have children under the age of 16 and they're questioned for whatever reason, maybe they've been violated, a sex abuse case, or maybe it's just a domestic incident, a domestic view, but juveniles have to, every police facility has a juvenile designated room for juveniles. And here you can see to children, as vulnerable as they are, you can see just the different areas so that they don't become more traumatized in their interaction with law enforcement. We try and make it very comfortable for them. We had an incident case yesterday. There's also a child advocacy center that's up in Poughkeepsie that is even a larger version of this, where you have trained individuals that know how to interview the children, understand. They can be very gullible, they can be led. So a child's got to be interviewed by a trained individual that doesn't lead them on, let them supply the story. And it's got to be a very cautious interview. Same thing if you go into medical examination of the child. You want that by trained experts. And you don't want to re-victimize a child. You want to keep it as limited as possible when you're interacting with children. So Dutchess County here has got that Child Advocacy Center. This might be a initial preliminary stopping grounds to have the child comfort until we arrange for the transport and individuals to interview them and follow through so that they get the proper treatment.
And now we're on the second floor of the police facility. And Chief, can you tell us where we are?
Okay, this is just outside the evidence vault. Again, as a part-time police agency, or with all part-time officers, we don't have a full-time custodian. Okay, so officers can encounter evidence, maybe it's a gun, a knife, a weapon, stolen property, drugs. So what the officer would do, they'd come in and they would open up the locker, put the evidence in the locker, take the key out. After placing the evidence in the locker, lock it, and then put the key into it. Now the evidence is secured behind a locked facility, a locked compartment. When the evidence custodian comes in on the reverse side in the evidence room, which is limited access, the evidence custodian can go in. He'll take the evidence out with the paperwork, and he'll log it into evidence, put it in a book, show a continuity of evidence log, so it shows from the time it came into possession to the evidence locker, and there's a continuity of evidence, chain of custody for the evidence. So the evidence custodian takes it from there. But this is a way to lock it up and secure it until the evidence custodian comes in and actually logs it into the evidence vault, which is, again, limited access.
And now we're upstairs in the squad room in the police headquarters. And Chief, can you give us an idea of the type of equipment that you use and the officers use on a day-to-day basis?
Sure, I can. I mean, in this room here, very quickly the officers start their tour. Here's one item over here is the taser. Okay, they have to sign in and sign out the taser. That's obviously if you have a maybe an emotionally disturbed individual, you want to use alternative rather than shoot them. Maybe you can temporarily incapacitate them with the 50,000 volts that this puts out. Basically, it freezes up the nervous system and allows you to handcuff the individual. Absent the taser, if someone was approaching you with a knife, you may have to shoot them versus hit them with the taser, emotionally disturbed person. The officers come in. They have portable radios here. They secure a radio. They secure the keys to a car. We alternate our cars. We can't drive them 24 hours every day, day in. So what we do is we alternate our vehicles so that we don't burn them out. So we use maybe 4 cars one day and 4 different cars the next day. Flashlights, the red flashlight, these are all charging units. They charge certain reports that they do. These are bulletins and notices. This is a defibrillator. Many times the officer is on patrol. We're the first one to scenes of someone in cardiac arrest or has a heart attack. You'll give the heart a shock.
Connect electrodes.
This is a life pack where you put the patches across the heart, and here you can see where they would attach. It shows you, gives you an instruction on how to do it.
Connect electrodes.
But in any event, many times, this can save someone's life by getting the heart to beat correctly again. In addition, the officers are trained in CPR, and they'll administer CPR, and that's very important within the first 10 minutes of any incident that we respond to. Literally, I think we responded to over 700 medical emergencies where we were at the scene. Many times they're the first patrol on the scene. So we've saved a few lives, and we've also been there in case they need it. It's not issued in all cases. This thing will tell you whether or not you can actually use it. Again, you can see informational brochures that come out. Training is something that's a continuous basis for all police officers. Things come out, just the different types of drugs and pills to identify what it is so you know what the appropriate charge is for the individual. You sometimes can do it visually before sending it to the lab so you can charge the appropriate charge. And then again, you say for your information, it's just different informational things, some information from counsel, information on orders of protection. All these things are constantly changing, and our officers come in and we try and keep them updated with the latest information so that they properly execute their duties and also serve the public better. Over here on the blackboard, if there's a hot issue, we'll write up on the blackboard up there. You see a couple of the cars that are out of service. When the officers come back for patrol, if there's something wrong, they'll write it on the blackboard what it's wrong so we get it in for service. Might be something as simple as a headlight, but you got to get that thing in quickly because you don't want the next nighttime patrol riding the car without a vehicle. We have a mechanic that works here part-time, and usually he'll take care of that, change the oils and things of that nature. As far as the equipment, I'll ask Officer Tracy to come along here. I mean, there's a lot of different equipment, and Darren Tracy, as you come around here, you'll see you start off with 2 extra magazines. It's like kind of prime real estate here, but you have your cartridges for your magazines for your gun. You have pepper spray. You have a set of handcuffs. You have the pistol. As you come around back, you see a spare set of handcuffs. Many times the officers have another container here with gloves to protect them from hazardous material, liquids and fluids and things of that nature. Over here you see the portable radio. Right here you got a mic running to his collar, which he can talk it to and communicate from the mic by squeezing the trigger. You have a flashlight that's needed, and here you see the holster for the taser. Okay, what you don't see here, you don't have a baton. There's other equipment that you can put on there. If there's an emergency, you have to sometimes use gas masks and different things can attach and stuff. But you can see that sometimes officers have to make a choice on what they're going to carry. It's a full belt. Some different officers have different waist sizes and stuff. Sometimes the female's a little bit smaller. They have to decide what they want. Maybe you can't carry a spare set of handcuffs right there. In addition, underneath you have the vest. All our officers are required to wear a vest. Here you can see Darren, and he's done a great job for us over the years. These different commendations on different people. You can see he's a pistol sharpshooter here. There's his shield number here, his name on the shield, the designation, Town of Fishkill Police Department. Over on the left side is our patch, Town of Fishkill Police Department patch. And then on the right side you have the American flag. And that pretty much, you have the pens and stuff and the uniform. Here's the mic I was referring to. jacket, we're in the middle of winter. All these things add, and when you start adding them all up, you're probably looking about 18 pounds, 20 pounds of equipment if you have to chase somebody down or run, get in and out of the car. Again, you're sitting in the car, the comfort of the car is another thing, but these things are jabbing in your back, you're carrying wrong. Sometimes over time, you could develop a back issues and stuff. Officers have it. This is a weight you're carrying around all the time. And the rest of the uniform, you know, here you see the blue stripe and of course, the Town of Fishkill turtleneck. So that's just a quick overview of what they wear.
Well, that's pretty much the tour of our police facility. Now we're going to talk to the chief a little bit more about some of the other programs that the department is engaged in, as well as some of the other agencies that they work with. All right, here we are upstairs again, and this is the chief's office. And we thought we'd talk a little bit about how the department engages with the rest of the community. So there are a lot of other first responders in the town, ambulance, fire. How does the department work with the other first responders in the area?
Okay, we have a very good rapport, and we emphasize that. We couldn't really do our job as effectively without the other entities in the town. And by that I mean the fire department. For instance, we'll talk again about a recent fatal, but there are a lot of things that have to go on, evidence gathering there. The fire department will come out. They'll light up the scene so that the forensic examiners who take the measurements and everything can see skid marks and everything. So they're out there, and they're out there as long as we are because they're lighting it up. Again, I have high regard for them because many of them are volunteer ambulances, you know, whether it's Rombout, Fishkill, Dutchess Junction, Glenham, all the fire departments, tremendous partners to help us with traffic, and vice versa. When there's a fire at a house or something, we'll assist them. You have other police agencies. You got the Village of Fishkill Police. We back each other up. Some of these calls, you know, some individuals sometimes are a little bit resistant, and you might wind up wrestling with them, trying to subdue them. Recently, we had a female attempting to commit suicide by running into traffic. It took 3 officers to, you know, to take her under control and get her the treatment that she needed. So very important to work together with the local police. As you go out a little bit further, and the county police department, and also the state police, who also work with them. Many times they have officers who have specialized, have extra training and stuff. For instance, the collision reconstruction teams, they'd come out, they know how to do the measurements, estimate the speed, look into the cause. It's a lot of training. We'll call them in, we'll utilize their resources. They're very willing to help. Sometimes they take over the investigation, sometimes they just give us certain components that are needed, and we'll do the rest. For instance, we've had cases where an individual was stabbed multiple times, and we arrived there. We had the perpetrator on scene, we had the victim, we were able to get videotape, confession, we were able to handle everything. Other times it goes into extended periods of times. We need a lot more manpower, so we'll turn it over to another agency, or we'll work cooperatively with them. They'll assist us with the extra personnel. In addition to that, again, the ambulance, besides the fire department and the police departments, ambulances, mobile life, we work with them. Sometimes we got to help them in everything from carrying them to calming the victims, calming the family, getting them to the scene so they know exactly where it is. They're out there. We have a terrific relationship with all the first responders. And then also certain scenes, the district attorney's office will come out. Last night, for instance, you interact with child abuse services, the Child Advocacy Center. We have crime victims, domestic incidents. So we interact with many other outside agencies, provide them the support, give them the information. Sometimes they take it from there because it's not a criminal matter. People need suicide. If they're a danger to themselves, they get evaluated and then get the help that they need. So we're kind of a intermediary. We're the first aspect, and then we turn it over to whatever department covers those particular things. But very important that everybody works together. Nobody has got the complete expertise to do everything, and we try and all work together, communicate together, pass the information on to the district attorney's office. But again, it may involve some social services programs. Dutchess County has some terrific programs. And then we have meetings. Recently we had a meeting with on the Emergency Preparedness Committee. You yourself were on it, and we got together with all these different entities, all these different departments. And again, when it becomes you know, power outage, it could be Central Hudson, it could be the health department, the water department, the highway department. You know, any one of these particular things, you need everybody to be able to work together, and everybody has their own component of it and their own expertise at it. but you have to work cooperatively. We had the exercise so that we would kind of hit the ground running and be able to work very quickly and not spend a lot of time thinking about setting up, that we all know who to contact with each other, who to speak to, so we can get those resources to the scene quickly, and again, serve the public in a fashion that they need to be served as efficiently and as effectively as possible. That's done by all these little exercises that we do, this training. It's a constant training with things turning over. I mentioned earlier that the Noxalon for the overdoses and stuff, that's something we want to train our officers to administer because, as previously stated, many times they're the first one on the scene.
So in talking about that emergency preparedness exercise, the school district was involved, and that opens up lines of communication. What other methods does the PD use to communicate with the public?
Well, we do interviews. The news agents, various news agencies will contact when they want information, or we'll supply them with press releases. We have press conferences. They're invited to these exercises to kind of understand it is because they're an important aspect. Maybe they need to be staged somewhere in a larger event. We hear about it all the time in the news, but you don't want to clog up the response roads to the scene, so they need to know that they need to go to a particular area or whatnot and get the information that they need. You mentioned the schools, that they might be an evacuation site, but school may be ongoing. The schools can supply buses and other things. So, but media, press releases, naturally you can call the PD. You have two options. If it's an emergency, you can call 911 because you want the nearest available. Many times if it's within the town, because we have active patrols, many times it'll be us. But on the day-to-day stuff, the 831-1110 number to the police department, you can call there. We'll send a patrol officer to the town. Earlier you saw the many people come into the lobby because the local residents, they'll come in, they'll ask for an officer, we'll have an officer respond to interview them, address their concerns. We have a Facebook. Sometimes we put out information, hot items, anything new that the public has. The detectives kind of keep up on that. There's informational exchange with intelligence on investigations. We have a field intelligence officer in the detective division. He communicates through bulletins over the electronic network, and if there's a pattern crime occurring and stuff, the information gets sent. Sometimes it's a lookout. Sometimes they're trying to identify an individual. They're identifying the type of pattern crime that you have, and that same individual may move from here to the village, to the town of Wappinger, to other areas, or even across the river. We have chiefs of police meetings, the chiefs of police from all the departments here in Dutchess. On a monthly basis, we'll connect, we'll share information. There you discuss the latest changes in laws and stuff, so you can update your police department so that they serve the public better. So those are pretty much kind of the variety of ways that we come in. And then, of course, there's the active patrol when we come across people. There are times we just stop, talk to residents. Residents will approach when we're checking the different residents, just routine patrol. Some of them, the encounters come. Obviously, we stop. Might be vehicle and traffic law, maybe some other unusual activity we see that we need to look into, question, ask an explanation of. Those are the different ways that we come in contact.
All right, Chief, in addition to the more standard communication methods that you use, I understand there's quite a bit of community outreach. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, a couple of programs right off the bat. One, of course, is the DARE program. We go into the different schools, the elementary schools, educate the children about drugs and the detriments for using the drugs and try and prevent that. We talk about bullying and whatever the hot issues of the day are that might address be of interest regarding younger children and stuff. So we're trying to stop certain actions before they occur. So that educational component. We also have a cadet program. It's kind of an explorer program. It's a training of young men and women between 14 and 20, where they actually come through a structured program to learn how to become a police officer. In doing that aspect, they learn all aspects: communication, discipline, investigation, every component of policing they kind of go through. And it kind of prepares them for a career in law enforcement. That's what most of them want, as well as treating them, how to treat the public with respect and dignity as they interact with them. And they'll come on ride-alongs when it's safe. They'll be allowed to ride and come out and observe scenes and assist us with traffic, keep logs, evidence logs, and things of that nature. So they really get all different aspects. So that coupled with, as Officer Tracy mentioned before, the senior citizens and the community center next door, the recreation center, and different requests from schools to speak about different things. Anything we do to educate the public. You know, there are different highway safety programs and stuff. We'll educate on that. A lot of times they come out jointly from multiple police departments on holiday weekends, seatbelt safety, distracted driving, things. So it's public outreach, educate them, even to the fact, let them know when we're going to be doing the enforcement, but really to prevent those things that cause accidents and really harm people. And again, they're distracted, and try and educate them on maybe pull to the side of the road and don't do it, you know, just get distracted and the focus of driving.
All right. Well, that about wraps up what we had to talk about here inside the building. And Chief, thank you for taking the time out of your busy day.
Thank you.
And Officer Tracy, thank you for the tour.
My pleasure.
Can we borrow Officer Tracy to take us on a ride-along, check out the equipment in the cars?
Absolutely.
All right.
Whatever you need.
Let's go.
Everything's fine by. I'll landline you, give it the details. 3.
Okay, I'm Officer Tracy with the Town of Fishkill Police Department. I'm with the Community Policing Division. And right now we are going to be taking a ride along in Patrol Vehicle 605, the Community Policing Vehicle, and just make everybody familiar with the community.
I'll be at 197 Windsor.
Well, as you could tell by the amount of traffic, I mean, unfortunately, the average of people that are still using electronic devices while they're in operation of a motor vehicle is still really, really high. And unfortunately, as times get busier, obviously the priorities of the things that you're addressing, that changes as well. But yeah, it's definitely an ongoing problem that you know, is constantly addressed, and trying to get the upper hand on it to try to have a little bit more, you know, safer traffic patterns. On the average, your average patrol unit will average anywhere between 65 and anywhere up to 150 miles per shift. And some of these vehicles are on unfortunately, are on a steady rotation. You know, that's obviously a 24-hour service, and some of these vehicles would love to have a little bit of rest, but aren't able to. So it's just a constant rotation, constant driving, a constant presence in all the neighborhoods, in front of all the businesses as a deterrent. We have mutual aid agreement because of the uniqueness of the geographical location of the town of Fishkill. We border with the town of Wappingers, the town of East Fishkill, the village of Fishkill. There's also a separate entity within the town. The city of Beacon, and then also at the southern end of Southern Dutchess, we meet with Putnam County, with Cold Spring, New York, which is patrolled by Putnam County Sheriff's Office. So there's a big culmination of agencies that we have a mutual aid agreement with, and do respond to aid on a lot of calls jointly every year. Yeah, and this is a typical day. As you can see, it's a 2-lane road. The areas have grown immensely, and the infrastructure obviously has nowhere to stretch from here due to the congestion of real estate. So it's a little frustrating, but we deal with it. I love working for the town of Fishkill. You know, I have a saying that I kind of jokingly say to a lot of folks, that it's because of the community, because of the diversity of folks here, and it's kind of like a country club. It's a quite beautiful area, a lot of great people in the town, work with a lot of great people in the police department, and you know, I myself live in the town, and more of a testament to it. Wouldn't have it any different. I mean, we want to, you know, obviously, along with, you know, most of the things that are, you know, involved in having a mission statement and upholding a mission statement for your operations of a, you know, a police department. There's, you know, school children. We get a lot involved in a lot of activities at the schools and stay very informed with, new policies on evacuation drills and lockdown drills. This day and age, those are necessary. And just, sometimes just to pass up, say hello, be noticed, interact. There's nothing worse than being in a community of this size and not being approachable or approaching somebody, and
6605.
it'd be a tragedy just to be in a vehicle all day long and not get to know the community. 605, go ahead, basics.
Plainview residence for a 63-year-old, difficulty breathing, normal life, should be on the scene. 27.
What we're heading to is a medical call. Someone had initiated a call to 911 for a emergency response by EMS, which we're mutual aid also with EMS. We're obviously at the front lines. 9 times out of 10, usually first responder on the scene. So if need be, we can administer CPR, use of an AED device, if need be, if we need to reshock somebody's heart to get a rhythm. And anything and everything that we could do to help the community.
Have a Merry Christmas.
You too. Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Stand by.
Okay, so this is a call that, dealing with the community, you kind of get a sense of, getting a familiarization with the folks. And there's a gentleman on this call that occasionally goes through severe problems with COPD or, asthma, and temporarily has these episodes, which we have been familiar with and dealt with before in the past. And most of the issue was remedied prior to arrival, so they're requesting a return to service for EMS. And that's it. We check up on them, make sure everything is okay, see if we can render any assistance, and if they do not need it, we return back into service. Another call.
6.
That was taken care of prior to arrival. You can show me back in service. Why I decided to become a police officer? Well, in my case, I think I would love to just come out with the typical answer that you hear that comes out of most folks' mouths, that there were certain reasons or catalysts that lunged into this career. I was actually asked to come on board with a police department prior to my lateraling over here to the town of Fishkill, and it was a close personal friend who was eventually rose up the ranks and became a commissioner of police, and I guess just from constant conversation and just based on interaction with him with actions on things, and he would quite frequently ask my opinion on certain situations when he felt the need to talk about things of the nature of work, and finally just said one day, hey, listen, I think you'd be an asset to us. Why don't you, fill an application and come work for us? And from that point on, it was history. And I do have to say that as compared to most folks who have a extremely lengthy career in law enforcement, the past 11 years for me have been unbelievable. I really love the job. I love the job. Couldn't say it enough. And approaching us just south of here is a retired railroad crossing. You could see the uprights above Route 9. A interesting story 2 weeks ago during peak traffic patterns. It was approaching 5 o'clock p.m. There was actually a service train that does utilize these tracks to bring service equipment up and down for unknown purposes, but it does make its way up here maybe once every couple of years, and it had, I guess they had just recently done extensive blacktopping and repairs to this corridor of Route 9, and apparently had blacktop too close to the rails, and the train had covered north and southbound of Route 9 and got seized on the rails and completely shut down Route 9 for about 25 to 30 minutes during peak travel time, which was quite unusual.
You respond to that?
Yeah, I actually took up a stationary post at this next intersection, and being a single unit in this area because everything was locked up, had to direct traffic. You know, as you can see here, there's a stretch of 5 lanes where we're present right now, another 5 adjacent to us, and directing traffic in the middle of the roadway, and it made life quite interesting. A lot of frustrated folks. I nickname it Talladega, and it seems that we have 3 lanes approaching here. One of these lanes is a designated turning lane for the former Duchess Mall, and then as you approach further south, about another 300 yards up, obviously the infrastructure merges back down to 1 lane, north and southbound. As you can see, we're approaching that now. And because we are traveling with a marked patrol vehicle, obviously most of the folks are at their best behavior behind the wheel. But for most of the people that do approach us or call us at the police department, it's frustrating that it gets to the point of almost a speed contest to who's going to make it in front of the other by the time they hit this single lane, because it's a big commuter location for Westchester and New York City. There's been quite a few times we've actually had to reach out to the New York State Police for an aviation unit to locate lost children on these mountains.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you patrol the mountains as well?
Correct. Yeah. And I myself, in full duty gear, have walked the distance of Mount Beacon all the way up, more than one occasion.
That's amazing.
I hope I'll still be able to do that in my 60s. But I could.
You get that rush, right?
Yeah, and it's, there are a lot of folks who aren't in law enforcement that have that same instinct. Obviously, you see all these stories on TV all the time about somebody that just rushes and jumps on railroad tracks and, pulls a person up, throws them on the platform. Same instinct. It's just that there are people who have that. It can't be taught. You either come with it. If you don't come with it, you're not leaving with it. Just some people just have that ability to just react. Okay, so right now we're heading back into the headquarters, and I just wanted to take this time to thank you very much for shining not only a light on the police department for the town of Fishkill, but a camera as well. It was a great company, and I was glad to share some of the experiences with the police department with the community. And thank you very much for hosting it.